A deload week is simply an easier week of training, and if you love pushing your limits, this might be the missing piece to your progress. The real questions are, why would we ever want to train easier on purpose? How easy should the deload be? And how do you know when it's time to take one? Let's go in order, because once you understand the why, everything else fits into place. When you train hard, your body builds fatigue, and that fatigue isn't automatically bad. It's part of the process. We need overload, harder and harder training over time to force adaptation. But with that comes accumulating fatigue. If you never manage it, eventually two things happen. Performance stops going up and injury risk increases. A simple example is soreness. In normal programming, you space out sessions so you can recover. You bench press Monday and then again on Thursday, so your chest and shoulders have time to rebound. But here's the idea. Some types of fatigue take longer than a few days to clear. And that's where deload weeks come in. They are meant to reduce longer lasting fatigue that builds up across multiple weeks of hard training. A lot of people describe this as my nervous system is fried, CNS fatigue, or just everything feels heavy. And while people overuse those terms, the idea is real. Here's the simplest way to understand it. Local fatigue is when a specific area is fatigued. Your chest is sore, so bench feels awful. But maybe your back still feels great and you can hit a pull-up PR. Nervous system fatigue is different. It affects your whole body. Your nervous system basically turns down output, meaning the signal to your muscles isn't as strong. So everything feels heavier, slower, harder, and uncoordinated. And typically that kind of fatigue needs more than a few days to heal. The deload week allows that fatigue to drop so we can get back to productive training over the next few weeks and months. Now let's get practical. When people say take a deload, they usually mess it up in one of two ways. They don't reduce training enough so they don't recover, or they reduce it so much they come back feeling sluggish. So here are two deload options that I recommend. Try both over time and see what works best for you. My favorite option is to train the same days, same movements, and same general structure. You simply reduce the volume to about half and intensity to about 70%. Here's an example. If your normal workout is 5 sets of 8 at 300 pounds, a deload might look like 4 sets of 5 at 225 pounds. You'd make similar reductions across all your lifts, sprints, or high-stress training. This keeps your habit and routine intact, but massively reduces fatigue. The second option is for people who need more complete rest days. If you normally train upper body, say Monday and Thursday, and lower body Tuesday and Friday, you only do the Monday-Tuesday sessions and you skip Thursday-Friday. But those two sessions shouldn't be full intensity either. Reduce volume and intensity to around 80%. Instead of 5 sets of 8 at 300 pounds, maybe it's 4 sets of 8 at 245 pounds. There is no magic deload protocol though. The goal is to reduce fatigue, maintain technique, and come back feeling fresh and powerful again. Start with these options and you can adjust as you learn. Now we need to talk about timing, and this depends heavily on your training level. See our video on what makes somebody a beginner, intermediate, or advanced for more details. Beginners usually don't need planned deload weeks. They might miss sessions here and there due to vacation, school, or general life. But planned deloads aren't necessary. Why? Well, because beginners are focused on mastering technique and building consistency. They aren't strong enough yet for workouts to generate extreme fatigue. Intermediates are the first group who should consider deload weeks. Early intermediates might not need a deload week any sooner than 8 weeks, especially if training intelligently and recoverably. But as intermediates get stronger, older, and more muscular, deloads might make sense closer to every 6 weeks. Advanced lifters should usually plan deload weeks as part of their structured training. Most advanced athletes will deload about every 4 to 6 weeks. One of the bigger differences between intermediates and advanced training is you just can't work hard in a straight line. Advanced athletes are bigger, stronger, and faster. And because of that, every workout generates more fatigue and damage. So fatigue management becomes a real skill. Now the exact deload timeline depends on the individual. A 300-pound offensive lineman bench pressing 500 pounds probably needs a deload more often than a 160-pound soccer player. Also, if you train 2 to 3 times a week versus 5 times a week, your timeline's gonna be different. So don't obsess over the calendar. Use the guidelines I gave simply as starting points. Instead, look for these signs. You feel sluggish and beat up. Warm-ups feel heavy, and bar speed is slow for no reason. Minor aches and pains start popping up, motivation starts dropping, and you feel like you're just surviving workouts and not improving. For me personally, I can handle about 5 weeks of hard training before I need a deload. If I push to 6, I usually just start getting weaker and minor injuries start showing up. So I keep most training blocks between 4 and 5 weeks, then deload. But that's what you need to figure out for yourself. And notice, deloads only make sense if the training leading up to them is structured intelligently. If you start week 1 with insane volumes, max intensity, or make huge jumps week to week, you're not training hard. You're just beating yourself into the ground. And you'll end up needing deloads constantly or getting injured. Not because deloads are missing, but because the whole program is poorly designed. The same thing could be said if you're just not training hard enough to have earned a deload week. We do have an entire series on creating a training program, so check that out, but here are a few good guidelines to follow. Week 1 should feel about a 7 out of 10 difficulty. Week by week, you slowly increase volume, intensity, or effort. So by the final week of the block, you're at about a 9.5 to 10 out of 10. If you're doing that correctly, most people will naturally need a deload around 4 to 6 weeks. Here's a rule of thumb. If you need a deload after 3 weeks, you're starting too hard, increasing too fast, or some combination of the two. If you need longer than 6 weeks before a deload, you're likely starting too easy or progressing too slowly. Now, there are some exceptions like elite strength athletes moving massive weights, or say a beginner / early intermediate that can handle longer stretches of training. But overall, these guidelines work for most people. And once again, if you're progressing nicely, don't change much. Make small adjustments, pay attention to your body, and learn over time. The last thing to consider is how you should feel when the deload week is over. Simply put, amazing, both physically and mentally. You should feel excited to train. Bar speed should be moving faster. Weights should be feeling lighter, and you should feel like you have better coordination. If you still feel sluggish, a few possibilities may exist. You might just need less training volume or intensity on your deload. Or if you took option 2 or decided just to take the whole week off, try option 1 next time. Sometimes doing absolutely nothing makes people feel worse than light training. And don't try brand new exercises because novelty creates soreness and extra fatigue even with light loads. Any remaining deload week questions can really only be answered by you as an individual through training, paying attention, and making small adjustments. If you've got questions about your exact situation, drop them below in the comments. I'd love to help. I just can't cover every possible scenario in one video. Good luck, and never stop improving.